Welcome to the Understanding Programming series. This is number 102. Today we're going to discuss adaptation and the three main theories, both within biology and more so within exercise science and sports science, that underpin our understanding of adaptation. Adaptation can be towards any biological stressor, but specifically we're obviously interested within exercise stressors. So aerobic training, anaerobic training, weight training, speed training, whatever it is, these three theories are basically underpin our understanding of how biological systems, or more specifically the body, how they react to the stress, how they adapt to the stress, and how they ultimately get better or improve. So the first theory is general adaptation syndrome. This was initially put forward in the early 1900s or the early 20th century by a guy called Hans Seal. It's a three-stage general observation. It's not really a theory per se. This is just basically the theory that led on to the two more well-developed adaptation theories that are more specific to exercise. The three stages are alarm. So alarm is basically when a biological system is introduced to a new stress. So for you, that could be a weight training session or it could be an aerobic session. You then have the resistance stage, where the biological system fights whatever the stress is. So that's when your body adapts, becomes fitter. And then you have the exhaustion stage, when your body has fought as much as it could, given up all its resources, and it gives out. So for us, this is when we maybe don't give enough time for recovery. We stress, and then exhaustion could be overuse injury, or in extreme cases, could be some kind of death. Which hopefully you'll never come across within your training. Theory number 2 is the supercompensation theory. This was originally put forward by Soviet sports scientists around the 1970s. This basically underpins most of periodization as we understand it. Certainly classical periodization or block periodization runs under the supercompensation theory. So it's quite similar to gas. As in, we'll pull you in closer so we can have a look. As in, we have a time frame. Yeah, this is our level of fitness, this line. You see we have a level of stress. So normally this stress within supercompensation is like a big overload or an overreach. We have a downgrade or a degradation in our fitness level. We return to our normal fitness, and then somewhere down the line we get a big spike in our capability. And that big spike, that big temporary spike in our capability, is known as the supercompensation. With time, we'll return back to baseline. Thus, supercompensation theory basically underpins most of what we understand to be peaking or overreach. But again, it's a reasonably simple theory, simple model that we can utilize to understand training practice. So we know when we go into a particularly hard period of training and we allow for the recovery from that hard period of training, we know later down the line we're going to get a spike in fitness. So for instance, we go through something like an accumulation into a peaking block, such as the Russian squat routine, where we have, or those squat masters, where we have 3 weeks of volume accumulation, accumulating a large workload, followed by a 3-week peak where we're basically dropping the work down, melting the volume away. We know in around 3 weeks of having completed that overreach, in 3 weeks time we're going to get a big PB, we're going to get a big jump in our fitness, and that in a nutshell is supercompensation. The third and final theory is what's known as fitness fatigue theory. This is a 2-factor model which was put forward, I think, in the 1990s, and it's a bit more nuanced and a bit more useful when planning your training. So, fitness and fatigue, basically, there's 3 factors we have. We have performance, we have fitness, and we have fatigue. So for fitness to be high, and fitness could be anything. It could be your aerobic fitness, your speed, it can be your 200 meter breaststroke time. It's whatever, it's related to the task you're trying to train towards. Fitness can't be high without some level of fatigue. We can never have peak level of fitness without being fatigued. And the higher fatigue can be super high, and fitness can also be high, but performance and fatigue can never be high together. So this is again where we get peaking, or where we get tapers going into peaks. This is basically the theory that underpins that. Fitness and fatigue are closely linked. Obviously, if you're going through a high training load, fatigue's going to be high by that nature, but also fitness is probably going to be high as well at that time period. When we're going through a lower training load, it is possible for fitness to die off. Fatigue will die off. Fatigue typically will decay or drop off faster than fitness does, but fitness and fatigue drop off together. By melting away volume, we're going to actually detrain a little bit to get that performance boost, to get that peak. We'll pull you in closer so we can have a look. So here, in both blue lines, we have fitness and fatigue. It's kind of hard to make out, but performance is quite easy to make out. So we'll see here, fitness and fatigue are both quite high. Training load is high, fatigue is quite high. Then we drop those two away. We get a nice performance benefit. We get a nice performance peak. That performance peak is for a competition, for a part of the competition. If you feel really good on a meet day, that's the peak, that's what you're experiencing. You're experiencing your fatigue dropping off. What you also may have experienced from that drop after the competition is the next 2 to 3 weeks of training can be shit. That's because you've melted away training load, and as a result of melting away training load, you've dropped fitness. So it takes time to accrue the training load, to raise your work capacity, to raise your fitness up again, to be able to train to the same levels you were beforehand. So fitness fatigue theory is the more useful of the three. It describes training as it happens. It's more accurate because it takes into account fatigue as well as fitness. Supercompensation is useful because it gives us a thought process, somewhere to work around, where we know if we apply a stress here, sufficient stress here, sufficient overload, we know in time we're going to get a fitness gain. And the better we are with our recording, the better we are with our logging and our observations, the more accurately we will be able to predict when that spike of fitness will become. And general adaptation syndrome, GAS, just gives us a basic understanding of if we puncture equilibrium with stress, we know we're going to get a response out of that. So hopefully this will give you a bit more of an understanding around adaptation, what we're trying to induce with training, punctuating equilibrium and getting an outcome out the other end. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Mark Keys. You can catch me at castironstrength.com, at Instagram or Facebook under Cast Iron Strength, YouTube, Speed Power Performance. You can shoot me an email at markkeys@gmail.com. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.